Hello there, shooters, collectors, history buffs, and friends and family that I've guilted into watching my videos. Welcome to another episode of What I've Found in Dad's Secret Arsenal. Today I'd like to present a Winchester Model 1894 Takedown rifle chambered in .30-30 caliber. Well, when this gun was made, it was actually 30 WCF as it's marked on the barrel, and that stood for 30 caliber Winchester centerfire. And Winchester developed this cartridge and developed the guns to shoot it, and the .30-30 was the first smokeless powder cartridge available to civilians, and this is one of the first guns to shoot it. And from what I've read, this cartridge has probably taken more deer in the United States than any other cartridge. It's a very common deer round, and although this gun was made for smokeless powder, this round here that came out of a box, it was marked as being loaded with a black powder substitute rather than smokeless powder. Dad didn't want to stress out any of his older, more used weapons. Although you'll notice that there is orange paint on the sight on this gun because Dad didn't have any trailer queens in his arsenal. Everything that he owned, he shot. In fact, Dad was like, did you ever have a pothead friend that turned everything into a bong? Well, my dad was like that gun guy that turned everything into a gun. He would drill, if he could find a stick, he would drill a hole in it and see if he could shoot a BB out of it or something. So nothing in Dad's arsenal was spared use, that's for sure. Now this gun is a takedown rifle, and I'll show you how that operates. You have to open the action, so open the gun up, and you'll notice that the slide comes back on the top of the gun, and the injection port ejects the shell over your shoulder, which is really a nice feature because it makes the gun ambidextrous, and you can shoot it from either the left or right shoulder. Although the loading port is on the right side, and this is the magazine here that we're going to unscrew and take the gun apart. You'll also notice, you see that orange paint on the sight, but you'll also notice that well, let me get this apart here. You just flip this tab up, and then you can unscrew the barrel. I just kind of try and keep it in the middle there and unscrew that. You'll also notice, while I'm unscrewing here, that the end of the barrel is threaded for a silencer. And I don't know if it was like that from the factory, or maybe it was machined on there later on. I'm not exactly sure. You can also see that the sight is windage adjustable, and it looks like it's a little beat up. It's probably been adjusted once or twice. The finish on this gun really isn't in the best of shape. It looks like it was wire wheeled or maybe sanded down a long time ago, and it was probably a little rusty, and I know it wasn't something Dad did. He was always very particular about the patinas on his guns, and this wasn't one that he was very proud of. It definitely looked like it may have had a rough life. And the gun is kind of loose too. I don't know if it's normal, but it seems like this pin rocks around a little bit. It kind of just feels a little loosey-goosey. The barrel is nice and tight. I mean, I've been holding it here with a magazine tube out, and that's what holds all this together. And it's really, there's no play in the barrel or anything like that. But you just give this a quarter turn, and it separates. And here's your receiver. You put that down here. And you can see how it's labeled 30 WCF. I guess back then, it was since Winchester designed that cartridge, when other manufacturers started using it, they didn't want to call it a Winchester centerfire cartridge anymore, so they changed the name to 30-30. You have to be careful when you're using a tubular magazine with these rifle cartridges. You don't want a tipped bullet because you don't want to have it pressed against the primer of the bullet in front of it. God forbid you drop the rifle, or even maybe just the concussion of shooting the gun could fire off a round in the magazine and cause the magazine tube and possibly the fore end and your hand to blow up. So you'll see that a lot of the 30-30s, they have flat tip bullets. I would imagine they do make tipped bullets because there are other 30-30 rifles that have rotary magazines or bolt actions and stuff like that. So they didn't necessarily have to have that. But with these tubular magazines, you want that flat tip bullet. So I'm going to put this back together here, and I'll show you. The idea of having the takedown rifle was that it was much easier to pack. You could put it in a saddlebag on your horse, or pack it away in a suitcase and take it across the country. And it was a nice, simple gun to keep tucked away in a small space and take it away for traveling. Got to kind of give the magazine a little wiggle to get it in there. And screw this down. That puts it all back together. the rear sight on this gun has different flip-up sights in the back here, and I don't want to operate it because it's kind of in rough shape. Not that it's in rough shape, but it's a bear to flip, and I'm a little concerned because one of the pedals is missing off one of the sights there, and I don't want to damage it any further. But you can see that it has different rear sights that flip up to extend the range of the rifle. And that was one of the downsides to having the ejection port on the top of the gun and having the ejected shell go over your shoulder, is that you couldn't mount the scope on it now. You'd have to mount it off to the side, or you'd have to mount it much further forward because you needed to clear that ejection port. If anybody watched the video on the Zulu shotgun, this would have been one of those repeating rifles that would have been considerably more expensive, and that Zulu shotgun was not necessarily meant to replace, but was meant to be a low-cost option to having a repeating rifle, something like this. These were popular also in the Western expansion, and some of the earlier lever-action guns from Winchester, like I think it was the model 1866 possibly, and some other ones where I think it was the gun that won the West, if I remember correctly. These lever-action repeating rifles, you know, I'm into cars and motorcycles, and I thought that they were all the numbers and stuff that they have and engines and so how confusing that was. But between the model numbers and all the different calibers with the guns, I mean, it blows my mind how much stuff goes on with these guns. I mean, there's just so many different manufacturers, so many different countries, and so many different rounds and so many different models. I mean, it's just staggering the number of differences. So I apologize if I screw up the history on some of these guns, because there is a lot to remember and a lot to understand when it comes to them. In fact, I find that I shoot these videos and I turn the camera off, and 2 seconds later I'm like, oh geez, I forgot to say this, that, and 10 other things. There's always just so much information on any of these guns that I pull out. I could spend weeks studying just one of these rifles or one of these guns, I feel like. But I think that's enough so far for this episode. So I'm going to wrap it up here and say thank you to everybody. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any history that you'd like to add or anything to say, please do so down in the comment sections. I love when you guys comment on the videos. When people take time out of their day to comment on my videos, that makes me really happy, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.